Rocky Adams, Senator Thayer, Senator Yates, Representative Bridges, Representative Fraser Gordon, Representative Grossberg,
Here.
Co-Chair Lewis,
Here.
and Chair West.
Here. We have a quorum. We are duly constituted to conduct business. First matter of business is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval? We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Anyone have any announcements before we get started? Seeing none, please call the first regulation.
Council on Postsecondary Education, Public Educational Institutions, 13 KAR 2120 and 2130, both emergency.
13-2120 emergency amends the funding model to distribute general fund appropriations for public universities in accordance with Senate Bill 191 from this past session to revise degree production allocations and weightings, increase small school adjustments, and add an adult learner earned credit hour premium. 13-130 amends provisions for general fund appropriations to Kentucky Community and Technical College systems in accordance with Senate Bill 191 from this past session to revise definitions, metrics, and weightings, reallocate the equity adjustment, and include a 3-year rolling average for data.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm Travis Powell, Senior Vice President and General Counsel at Council on Postsecondary Education.
Sterling Creighton, attorney for the Kentucky Council on Postsecondary Education.
Thank you so much. As stated, these are regulations just conforming to the implementation of the bill we passed during session. That is correct.
Yeah, correct. We captured all the changes there and met the deadline for filing. So these changes were applied to the distribution for this current year as directed by the Senate bill. So,
thank you so much. Any questions from any members? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
State Board of Elections, 31 KAR 210, emergency and ordinary. 31 KAR 341, ordinary and emergency. 31 KAR 431, emergency and ordinary. 31 4220, ordinary and emergency. 31 526, ordinary and emergency. 31 KAR 540, ordinary and emergency.
31 KR 2010 E&O amends to comply with House Bill 564 from the 2022 regular session and define the computer-based electronic file type program administrators shall share with the State Board of Elections so the agency can accurately update its election night reporting with the public. 31 KR 3041 E&O establishes the electronic voter registration system that allows a person to register or re-register to vote and update his or her voter registration information electronically. 31 KR 4031 E&O establishes, pursuant to House Bill 564 from the 2022 regular session, reporting requirements including procedure and forms used. 31 KR 4220 E&O establishes recount procedures. 31 KR 50226 E&O amends to ensure 2 mail-in absentee ballots cannot be issued at the same time with the same barcode or unique label if a voter requests a second mail-in absentee ballot. 31 KR 5040 E&O establishes required procedures if a voter's eligibility is questioned. The staff suggested amendments for both the E's and O's amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Afternoon, Taylor Brown, General Counsel for State Board of Elections.
Thank you so much. As stated, these ordinary and emergencies are attempting to carry out legislation passed by General Assembly. Do we have any questions from members for this gentleman? Senator, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking here, I realize that one of my colleagues pointed out that we have several people here to speak in opposition, and obviously that these regs were put into place to carry out legislation that was passed by the General Assembly. Were there issues in implementation of this that you see through the administration?
No, I think that everything went smoothly for the primary with the ease in place, and I think that one of the persons that might want to speak in opposition even said so at the hearing we held on the emergency regulations.
Senator Yates, if I could jump in, we do have someone signed up to speak in opposition, and I'm going to let them speak in just a second. Do you want to be like more specific about what particular regulation you're talking about?
I was just, since you're here to present, I thought that a lot of times that you could kind of give us an overview of if there was, because I
Sure.
know the implementation sometimes can be difficult based on what we pass.
Sure.
And so if you just said it went smooth and everybody's in agreement with it, I really don't have anything more specific other than if you see what is the controversy that's coming down the pike.
I would let the speaker
Fair enough.
address that. Yeah.
Okay. We do have some people signed up to speak in opposition, all from Jefferson County. So if the Jefferson County delegation would step forward, and if you don't mind moving to the side, slide over a little bit. Just pull the mics up, make sure the green light is on, state your name for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank Friday, Jefferson County Clerk's Office, Director of Government Affairs.
Mary Ellen Allen, Jefferson County Clerk's Office Election Center Co-Director.
Please proceed.
And members of the committee, we are primarily concerned about two of these. These regulations in general are pretty much housekeeping regulations, but there are two items that really would be quite a strain on the conduct and the operation of Jefferson County's elections and during our election, or what we'd have to do in the future. I just know generally, though, that this package of regulations are all issued not really in the spirit of KRS 13A 197 about each, if I may quote, each emergency regulation shall contain a statement of the nature of the emergency and be the reasons why an ordinary administrative regulation is not sufficient. If you look at your package of regulations, it's just pretty much a pro forma recitation that there's an election coming up. I don't think that's really in the spirit of getting you a real answer about why an emergency is needed and emergency regs are needed. Specifically, we're concerned about 31 KR 4031 that requires election night reporting of write-in voting of candidates who are official write-in candidates. As you know, people can write in anything they want, but it only gets counted if it's an officially declared candidate who's registered with the Secretary of State or the county clerk. Going back on election night to find these people is just quite a chore. We estimate in Jefferson County we would need 2 people to do that, and it would take all night to do that. So that's usually a process where we sort through the legitimate write-in votes over the week following an election, put that in a report for the state board. Things are already slow enough during election night, and taking care of everything needs to be taken care of. That's really we see as just an unnecessary burden on our limited clerk's office and what we can do for that in doing that. And there doesn't seem to be any compelling reason to have that done election night. Just a few votes for people who are going to be legitimate declared candidates.
So if you don't mind, there are 2 of these
Yeah.
that we're going to be discussing.
Yeah.
I would say that we just take them one at a time.
Okay.
Okay. So does anyone, before I open it up, I'll just ask my own question. So just to clarify what we're talking about, the new reg would mandate that you report who the write-in candidates were and the number of those votes for those candidates.
Yes, providing they were officially declared write-in candidates.
So it would require a vote tally, basically election night results for write-in candidates.
So in other words, you can't report any of the results unless you include that
Correct.
in your report.
Exactly.
So the way that happens now is you report the results, you report all that, but it comes later.
Correct.
Okay.
So under the statute, and for 20 years up until now, all counties report on an election night reporting system. Remember, it used to be COT, then it was an election night reporting system, now it's an in-house reporting system. So every county has voluntarily on election night reported all totals. We continue to do so. In Jefferson County, we have to get results on election night from 627 precincts in over 207 locations on election night. We will continue to do that. The problem is we don't count write-ins on election night. That would be a whole separate procedure. We do that in the days following. It is part of our certified vote totals. If we did have a statewide candidate or a federal candidate filed for write-in, it's usually just city candidates that file for write-ins, but of course you don't know until 10 days before the election whether you're going to have a write-in candidate, because that's the deadline for filing the declaration of intent. So you're basically holding up all of Jefferson County's results on election night in a presidential year. And I think that's an important thing to note. We are a large ship in Jefferson County, and to change a procedure in a presidential year when you had no issue with getting the results, it's just this one category, just seems like an undue burden and unnecessary, and certainly not an emergency.
So I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to immediately go to the Board of Elections. So is this, let's take the emergency ordinary thing out of it, out of the question. So is this a regulation from the Board of Elections, or is this a change mandated through a KRS that we passed?
It's not mandated by a KRS passed by the legislature. But I would answer what was just said, that it's not consistent with what the vendor has reported to the State Board of Elections. It's not an onerous process that takes lots of time on election night. We're looking, well, give the perfect example. In Jefferson County, one of the colleagues here in the House, it's to be determined more fully by the Supreme Court, but she may have to mount a write-in campaign herself. And the State Board believes that, given what the vendor has told us, given the experience in 119 other counties, many of who do not have the staff that Jefferson has, that it's not an onerous process, and the voters deserve that. They've got every other result that night. Why can't they have that one? It's according to the vendors, it's not some go hunt through thousands of votes. The machines that are used now pick up. You have to be. We're not looking for Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, right? We're looking for the specific candidates that have already become eligible write-in candidates, and the machines are looking for that. We're not asking them to report every single. We always get the wild names for every election as write-ins. We're not looking for that. We're looking for the declared candidates.
But you have to look at any time anybody fills in and there is a write-in declared. You have to look at each ballot, even if you can't count it.
Yeah, can I add to it?
Please proceed. Yes.
Yeah. If you remember your ballots, I think everyone's ballots are the same these days. You have a category for write-in and a little box you can check. If you check that box, and you can write in anyone you like. It may be an official write-in candidate or not. The machine won't know that. So basically, someone has to either go back and check the physical ballots, or as Mr. Branch is suggesting, there is software where you can take the pictures of the ballots and hunt through it that way, so you're looking at it through a screen. Either way, we calculate it's going to take all night for several people in Jefferson County, because even if there's just one official candidate, that box is going to get checked off and flag write-in votes. So we have to go back to every precinct that had write-in votes, and which will be a plenty, I'm sure, in a presidential year, and just check which ones are good or not. So we're we're not really saving much time either way that way.
And we have over 80 small cities in Jefferson County. That's really where you're going to see your write-ins. And so the way the reg is written, you're counting all of that before you can report your results. And again, in a presidential year.
So let's go back to Mr. Brown. So specifically, who are the vendors we're talking of that you're going off of?
ES&S is the vendor for Jefferson County.
ES&S.
Election software. What is it? Systems and software. Excuse me.
So hold on just a second. So the vendor sounds to me like the vendor is saying one thing and the county clerk is saying a different thing. Is that kind of where we're?
No, I not quite. I mean. With the current technology, instead of actually having to go into the ballot boxes and pull out the physical ballots. If we turn on the software that says take a picture on each machine, that'll get down. A picture of each ballot will get downloaded into one of the thumb drives that give us our tabulations, and we can look at those. So we, instead of collecting those boxes, it is a little faster process, but we would have a thumb drive for each election box or tabulating machine. Those will get inputted in one at a time to basically a laptop. And then one of our employees would look at that, would check every ballot that way. So instead of physically having to handle pieces of paper, they're checking through a screen. But it's still going to take a lot of time.
So does this kind of go against the legislation we passed a few years ago, where the machines are not to be connected to the internet? And would this kind of be an end around?
No, that wouldn't be the case, because you're using
you're taking a picture
physical thumb. Well, you are. Right now, a lot of counties do use the physical picture, and it's on the thumb drive. It's not on the internet, but there is a memory card or stick that has that information. But in Jefferson County, we kind of try to streamline things. But like I say, either way, using that card, that memory stick to get pictures of the ballot to find these write-in candidates, that's still going to take a lot of time.
And I think it's deceiving. I don't think it's fair to say that we couldn't do it. And I think Frank, in his in your comments that you submitted, these are all things that we absolutely can do if given enough time to prepare. What we were not prepared to do is change our procedures. Again, we're a large county. We're already collecting sticks from 627 precincts on election night. We've never had issues doing it. It's not something we couldn't consider. It's just not something we want to implement in a presidential year and hold up all the other results. I did serve as an assistant attorney general for several years, where I represented both the Secretary of State's office and the State Board of Elections. I was general counsel to the Secretary of State and the State Board of Elections. I know those systems. They work. And that's something we can consider in the future. And with respect to the other administrative regulation, we can consider that as well in the future. It is not a change that we can make easily in Jefferson County, or should make in a presidential year.
And I would, if I may, there's been discussions about this back to last year. This is not anything new that the state board sprung on Jefferson County or any of the other counties. This has been in the works for some time. This is not.
But it was filed.
Now July. Oh, correct.
Well,
but it's been discussed.
No, I agree with Mr. Branch. Since the new machines have come in, the technology's got more bells and whistles, and we've understood for at least a year now they wanted to start implementing some of those things, but it's not that easy. So, and we get the other regulations as well. The technology is not. There's still some issues, and like I say, we would not like to rush into this.
Senator Adams has a question.
Yeah, I guess more of a comment than a question. This doesn't seem to me to be an insurmountable challenge, because if this reg is not based on the KRS that we passed this last year, and you all are worried about the emergency component of this, why can't we just not make this regulation an emergency? Why can't we allow Jefferson County to have that time? Because I'll tell you what, if all of the Jefferson County results are delayed because of them not being able to understand and determine who the write-in candidates are until 4 a.m. or 10 a.m. the next morning, I mean, that's a problem for all of our candidates who are on the ballot in Jefferson County. That's a real problem. And
Senator, would you say it might be a problem for the whole state of Kentucky if we're trying to certify? There's a lot of people that live in Jefferson County, right? So
yeah.
it could flip.
So I'm just saying that maybe the emergency nature of this is what we fix, and then that allows Jefferson County to have some time to comply. But I'm just throwing that out there to the committee to consider.
So before we get to that and before you guys respond, I'm going to let Senator Yates ask his question.
I think that Senator from Jefferson just pretty much did it for me. And no, it's okay. That's we were kind of just back and forth a little bit on that. And my question is does it have to be an emergency? If you do the emergency, then you're going to require it to put it together very quickly. And Jefferson County having such a big block onto it potentially could help election results for the whole state, and I think that would be an issue. In the event that you guys weren't here testifying, maybe we could base it on this ESS, which I think is a system out of Florida that's contracted out, if I'm not wrong. Is that
Omaha.
Onto it? But if we're saying we're down the main power hub and we're worried that we're going to hold up the whole state in our results, I think we have to listen to you. So that was my comment and question.
Let's start with Jefferson County and then go to the Board of Elections if you want to comment on what they've stated. So.
Okay. Yes, we're very much open to modification and holding this off, especially we're going to get to the second regulation, but that would be, I think that's just really a thing of these technologies are complicated and it's just taking some time to implement this stuff. There's no election next year, and that breathing space is going to be quite welcome. And the maturity of these processes is something that just needs to happen.
So I got a question before we move on. So if we removed the emergency reg and kept the ordinary, would that fix your problem?
I think that would fix 90% of it. Now, that wouldn't go into effect for this fall election. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, if that's the correct. Yeah.
I guess our position is just, I don't understand what will change. The systems are set up already to operate this way. We're not talking hours and hours delay. We're like I said, the vendor has informed us. We've seen it in the other counties. It's not hours and hours. It would delay Jefferson County minutes, not hours.
Let me just speak to that quickly. For instance, we have 5 computers that we tabulate votes on. So our equipment isn't connected to the internet. No equipment is in Jefferson County, or in the state. So what comes back are election night results on a thumb drive. So on election night, while all the press is in your office, they're in our office, they're waiting for those results to come in from over 207 locations. And we have to get every single one of those sticks back before we can say, yes, these are all the results. Now, we either, again, you're taking that process that we already know very well, which is sometimes, we're waiting for 1 stick or 2 sticks or whatever because they're coming in from so many different locations. And while we train the election officers, sometimes they close down, they forget to get it. We're coordinating all that. And then on top of that, you're saying you're going to stop what you're doing. You're not going to report any of that. And you're going to at least devote one of those computers that you currently use to read results to go through all these write-ins. We just need time to do it. And I don't think this is the year. I'm not in a presidential year.
And if I may say, I don't see any great compelling interest in finding out these write-in results like right away. I mean, they may be.
We're required to certify them.
Right.
But the Friday after the election, if it were a statewide office, we're required to anyway under current law.
Yeah, but election night it's not unofficial results. It's really not that. It seems like a really compelling reason at this point.
So certified results aren't due to the state for any statewide offices or federal offices until the Friday after the election, which will continue to do so. And if there were a statewide write-in, those would be part of the certified results. So it's not like there's no deadline for write-in. It's just you have to have them. And again, for 20 plus years, the counties have all reported on election night just because everybody wanted them. But those are not certified results.
Representative Grossberg.
I would just like to point out that with the exponential growth of AI, there is zero doubt in my mind that by the following election, automatic reading of the write-in ballots will be just as accurate as human reading and will take fractions of a second for every single ballot to be read.
Senator Adams.
Yeah, and just one last thing. But, if this reg isn't mandated by statute, then what statute is the board relying on to promulgate this reg?
It's the same statute that's in our defining statute. It's 117 0151A. It authorizes the State Board of Elections to promulgate administrative regulations necessary to administer the election laws in the state. It's a general statute there that gives us that power.
Okay, and have you ever tabulated results in Jefferson County?
Have I? No, ma'am.
Okay. And they have tabulated results in Jefferson County. So it's,
They have?
the practitioners here, I think that voice weighs a lot with me. They know the bandwidth and they know the process.
Well, I would just respond to that, Senator, that there's less bandwidth in 119 other counties, and it's been able to be achieved there. They will both tell you, I think, like I said, they said in the hearing that we had on these regs that it worked smoothly in the primary. I don't understand what learning curve can be overcome in 2 years. To Representative Grossberg's statement that the technology is already there. It's not onerous, and for one county to hold the other 119 hostage because they don't want. They've admitted that they can do it. They just don't want to take the time to do it. Election administration is hard, and I'm sorry. It's the biggest county with the most staff. May be tallying results a little bit later than some of the smaller counties, but that's part of election day. I'm there till 4 o'clock myself. I have to be available till the last county is done for the night. It's a long day. That's part of the gig.
Well, can I just comment to that? First of all, we haven't implemented this. There are no write-in votes in a primary election, so none of the counties have dealt with this. The hearing what I'm getting from most of my county clerk colleagues is they're so busy with CAVIS and all the problems there in motor vehicles, they're lucky they got the elections done in the primary anyway, and they're not making a fuss about this stuff because this is like way down. This is not as big a deal for them because it's not as big an operation. And in a smaller county, you're going to have fewer. You have considerably smaller operations going on, and you can figure out a lot of these precincts as well. What's going on, but just in terms of the volume we have to deal with, it's just going to be unprecedented.
So I have a question for General Counsel. So I guess help us. What is the compelling state interest in mandating that the write-in information be available this November and not through an emergency reg? And not doing it through ordinary, and letting everyone implement it in a non-presidential year, like what do we gain? What is the big thing the state gains by having that information on election night?
The big thing is it ensures all 120 counties are operating uniformly. The big thing for Jefferson County residents specifically is, like I mentioned, your colleague in the House that may have to write or utilize a write-in campaign to hold the results. I shouldn't say hold them hostage, but when the results are available that night for the voters, to make them wait till Friday, just because we don't want to have a long night.
I mean, so for instance, in her case, what does she gain? We have to wait on the results a day or two. I mean, what?
These are unofficial vote totals, which again, up until this reg, have always been voluntary. Every county has always voluntarily reported on election night because certified vote totals aren't due under statute until the Friday afterwards. So the only, again, this has always been a voluntary process.
This is not in other words, this is not a factor in the election itself, right? We're not throwing some results out that could sway an election either way. This is just a forensic report of what happened, right? So in reporting that,
it's after the fact. Yes,
it's after the fact, right?
And I would say, just look at the hits to our website on election night. Look at every television station is running chyrons across the bottom, devoting hours of coverage to it. People want the election results, and we've heard that loud and clear. That's why we implemented the website to report them instantaneously.
But people want the election results true. But by implementing this reg, doesn't it push back the election results? Because they're saying they'll have to hold up the election results because of the write-ins. So we're pushing back the overall election results.
And
isn't that like kind of a counter argument?
I would just answer that per the state board's conversations with the vendors, we're not pushing back hours. We're pushing back 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not there's a checklist of things to do to upload your results to the ENR website, the election night reporting website. This is just another step on the checklist. It's not a step on that checklist that requires hours and hours and hours of time, minutes of time.
Representative Grossberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am texting in real time with an expert, and it's not like an elected official to contradict themselves, but I'm being told that the technology already exists, that in real time, as the ballots are submitted, the way that the scanning device scans the barcode, the circles, it does scan the write-ins and reads the write-ins, and that it's as accurate as a human. I'm still not comfortable, despite hearing that, because we haven't tested this ourselves in real time. But that is what I'm being told, is that the ability for it to accurately read without a human double checking, if we trust the technology is already accurate enough that it can read the names, and it is unofficial. And he texted another one using the example of Lisa Murkowski, which you guys might remember. She lost the primary for U.S. Senate out of Alaska as a Republican, ran as a write-in and won, but it required court wrangling because Murkowski was spelled right probably less frequently than it was spelled wrong. I don't know how our systems are set up. And
so if
because we all know who we're talking about, it's not the easiest name. If it's spelled similarly and voters' intent is clear, will it be corrected by our software?
Actually, we have a law on that says you can put all the ways your name can appear. And if it appears in any of those 4 ways, we can count it. So it's not even like it can appear one way before we count it if you filed a declaration of intent.
But what I'm saying is, if it's a complicated name, which it is, and it's similar, and we all know that's who they meant, if it's not one of those 4, would the software count it?
Oh, I don't know about this software, because that's a good question. But we couldn't under our Kentucky law. Again, we have one rule for an actual federal write-in, and we have another law for on the definition of vote, how we count a write-in. And again, these are all valid questions. Just
and that's where my concern is, because the name is complicated as Murkowski. Here I'm seeing Murky was counted in Alaska, and that would not have been one of the 4 options I would have had for variance on Murkowski.
Well, and these are, again, it's not like we haven't had a conversation with our vendor. Jefferson County, to my knowledge, is the only county that programs its own ballot. ES&S has told us on multiple occasions our ballots are so complicated. We have a committee that does it that's appointed by the County Board of Elections. We have talked to ES&S about what this would look like. We would probably bring in additional equipment to do this so that everything could be happening at the same time. It's just not something that, again, we want to implement without knowing how it works. Again, we are a big ship. It takes some time to move that. And again, it's not something we wouldn't consider, but we probably need additional computers. We have all the requirements that you have to allow people to observe your tabulation at night. We have cameras in there. We have cameras because the room isn't big enough to allow, again, we're just a large operation. We follow the law. Election administrators are planners. This just is not something that's a good idea.
I understand what you're saying, and the questions that were brought up to me in the text, I think, add further concern for me for immediate implementation, that even if it is reading accurately, reading alternate spellings that aren't in one of the 4, I think those are going to be questions that are going to be asked, and there's a value, even though the results are unofficial, to getting the results that night and not having all 627 precincts results held up because of 24, 25 precincts that are determining the outcome of a single election.
I'm going to call an audible right here. I think we've covered that regulation pretty well. So before we make any decisions or do anything on that regulation, let's go ahead and move along to the second regulation that you had concerns.
The second one we are concerned about is 31 KR 5 ;040. This one requires, the part we have a problem with is it requires the electronic inputting of names on the supplemental roster when a voter shows up to vote. A lot of times somebody will come in and they'll need to sign the supplemental roster because they may have moved to a different precinct or there's an issue with their voter registration and they need permission from election headquarters to go ahead and become a registered voter in that precinct and go ahead and cast a vote. Our issue is that, as I said, that with the technology changing, our e-poll books we have now are very nice. They have a feature where you can input that directly on the e-poll book if they need to make a change, so you don't have to sign a paper ballot, or sorry, a paper roster like you would in the past. Now, the problem we have is that the technology we have for ES&S and their poll books is that their e-poll books is that in order to do that, if to sign in, if you're not on the data roster already as a supplemental voter, is that you have to either have the election clerk has to have a supervisor code to open up that e-poll book to allow that to happen, or they have to call down to our election headquarters and have someone there input through the system to allow that e-poll book to be opened up and someone to sign on electronically on there at that point. Both those are not appealing options. Obviously, we don't really want our election clerks to have supervisor codes to open up the e-poll books. If it can be helped, we see those as a security issue. What we did this time for the primary, unlike the other regulation, this was in effect for the primary. What we did was have people who had to sign a supplemental roster. We had them call our headquarters, and a person on our election staff went ahead and inputted the information directly from headquarters. We see that as a real issue in a presidential election because there'll be a lot, as you know, and may remember, very, very few people voted in this year's primary. We expect to have a very busy presidential election year in presidential voting in November, and people who will need to sign a supplemental roster are going to probably there'll be a lot of them. They'll be calling our phone, or they'll be waiting in line to see have the clerks help them do that. We would like not to have to do that this year in the presidential year. We've already spoken to the vendor about this. They've got a couple of things they think they can do within 2 years to make this process a little easier, to not have to have a more secure way we can enter this stuff at the precinct level. We'd like to hold off on that and being required to do this right now. I think this is another example in small counties, a little easier to do. A lot of the small counties have their voting centers, and it's a little easier when they have an election official there who's doing this full time, who can take care of this matter. But we have just such a huge number of people voting in November, and it's either going to cause lines, it's going to jam up our phones, and really we would like not to have to deal with this time around. As the technology matures, it probably is not going to be a problem, but just this time around, it is going to be an issue, we think.
So just to add on a little bit about the procedure, again, Jefferson County has chosen to open all precincts and all polling locations. So we don't operate election centers. We train over 2,500 election officers, even more, because we'll have some alternates. What you have to do is train them that any time what we're talking about are individuals under our fail-safe voting rules, which we've had in effect for 20 years. Every time that they go, especially in a presidential year, because sometimes people only vote every 4 years, they won't have updated their address. So they go to vote, they have since moved, they haven't changed their address on their voter registration. Under our law, that's completely fine. We're going to allow you to vote. We're going to send you to the precinct that we can look up and see where your precinct is. We're going to send you to that precinct. At that precinct, under Kentucky law, as long as you fill out a voter registration card reflecting your new address, an oath of voter, and a supplemental roster, because your name won't be on that e-poll book, we'll give you a ballot. That's a small percentage of voters that we're not collecting their signature electronically. Now, again, it's a presidential year. What the state is asking us to do is when they get to that new precinct, they're going to have to call it the old precinct, and then we are going to have to add that name into that e-poll book. When they get to that new precinct, they have to wait until their name appears so that they can sign. Again, it's such a small percentage of voters, but it's a procedure that works now. We're still required to maintain that signature under Kentucky law. That's the proof that you voted. It just allows the State Board of Elections to give voter credit a little more easily because they have it electronically. That is a laudable goal, one we would like to, but we train 2,500 election officers. It is hard to get them to change a procedure on a dime. I do all the training. They have a lot to do. And so, again, it would be nice if our vendor made it a little easier for them. But again, to add a process for the election officers for a small percentage of voters when we can get everything that we need. Why impact the voters in a presidential year, make them wait for a small percentage, so it's a little bit easier for the honestly for the State Board of Elections to give voter credit. Because again, we still evidence you vote. We're still required to maintain that signature. I don't know why that's an emergency.
So I'm going to give the board a chance to respond. He's listened to the testimony. I'm going to throw another question on top of all that, just real quick for you to respond to. So in 040, it talks about within the new regulation, you provide alternative ways to allow a voter to still cast a vote if the voter is unable to provide certain types of identification. So as a legislature, we've specifically stated these are the types of identification. Mm-hmm. And so to me, providing an alternative is kind of going against KRS because we've kind of defeats the purpose of KRS if we specifically delineated these are the types of identification you need. So when you're commenting on all the other stuff, if you could just comment on that aspect.
Sure. And Senator, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure what you're quoting there. If
I'm quoting this. This is a summary, so I'll try to look within the reg itself.
Okay.
So if you just want to start with respond to what they said.
Sure. So I 100% agree with Ms. Allen that this is a tiny percentage of voters. The process, as Mr. Friday described it, I agree. I get why you wouldn't want to do the first option, but giving your poll workers the admin access. I agree that's also a security risk. But having the person step aside and call the election office, again, we're not talking hours. We're talking a minute or two. And when it gets pushed down that this person is who they say they are because it's been checked, it's another talking about identification, that this person is saying they are who they are because they've been found in the system at election headquarters. It's being pushed to the local poll book. Again, we're not talking hours, we're talking minutes. These things are the latest and greatest iPads and touch screens. They're not going to take 10-15 minutes out of this person's time to vote. It's going to a minute, two maybe, that it's going to add on to the process, and it helps confirm that the voter is who they say they are. The legislature has spent millions of dollars to provide these e-poll books to the counties, and this is one of the functionalities that they provide. It's they're out there. Again, the other 119 counties haven't had any problems with it. It's why the legislature spent the millions of dollars to provide the poll books. But then to the second part, I don't think we added any additional ways to identify yourself. We just incorporated what the
we're looking at that right now.
Okay.
There's the SBE 71 voter affirmation form. And so if you could just go comment on that.
Sure, yeah. So that's the one. This was actually in admin reg previously after the ID bill, Senate Bill 2 was passed back in 2020. So this has been something we've had. This is the form. You're absolutely correct, Senator. There's a list of acceptable identifications. If you don't have one of those, there's also a second subset of lists.
But that's on KRS, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Yes. So we're not adding to that. We're just saying in that legislation.
In here, it just provides a form that you fill out to.
If you
we'll leave that live for now.
Okay.
I appreciate the response on that. Do we have any questions from members on the second regulation that we discussed? Good question. Senator Adams.
Is this an emergency as well?
This is an ordinary. This is not.
This is an ordinary. Okay.
Am I correct on that? This is an.
It had an emergency.
They're both.
Oh, I'm sorry. It does have an emergency. It is an ordinary with an emergency. Sorry. But for clarification, in this one, you have a problem with the ordinary as well as or is it just the emergency?
No, I think if we're just talking about the November election, we're fine just if we can just hold off on the
You're
emergency.
fine with the ordinary on this?
Give
Okay.
us 2 years to get this straightened out. Like I say, this technology is going to work. I don't think I'm as optimistic as Mr. Branch is, but it does work. It's good, and as we implement it, we get better with it, and it's going to happen. But for the November election, this is really going to be a challenge.
Okay, that sounds great. I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit and come back. This is why this committee exists. we're getting in the weeds today. So my question is for the board, and I'm going to read the requirements of an emergency reg. It has to meet an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, prevent an imminent loss of federal or state funds, meet an imminent deadline for the promulgation of administrative reg, comply with an executive order. So in both of these e-regs, like how do they meet?
It's the threat to public welfare. The elections, free and fair elections, are guaranteed to citizens of the Commonwealth in Section 150 of the Constitution. When we've got one county, two counties maybe, not administering elections the same way as the rest of the counties in the state, that's not free and fair elections. That's what these are trying to.
But if this emergency reg doesn't pass or doesn't go through, the other 119 counties are held to the same standard.
Correct.
I mean, they can do. It wouldn't be different. The other counties can choose to do whatever they want to do. Correct? Is that?
Well, no, we wouldn't want. We want uniform compliance from all 120 counties. We're trying to avoid having a hodgepodge of election administration.
Okay.
Free and fair is uniform.
Okay. You all wish to comment on that?
As far as I know, the statute does not require me to capture a signature under 116.055, the fail-safe voting rules, electronically. So I can comply with the law, allow this person to vote, get a ballot for their current address. I can retain that signature as evidence that they voted. I can send that to the State Board of Elections. They can give that voter credit. I am performing my statutory obligation to have a free and fair election in Jefferson County. I just don't want to require to capture the signature electronically. I don't know why I have to. I don't know why that affects a free and fair election. It's not statutorily required.
I think that's been the argument. We don't want to do it in Jefferson County. 119 other counties do it. Jefferson County doesn't want to. The state board is here to see uniform election administration procedures throughout the state.
Well, if I could just comment on that, I mean, there's no bigger difference in current election administration than what we have with these election voting centers. We're going to do in Jefferson County and several other counties, we're going to have precinct level elections only on election day, and our voting centers on the previous early voting center times.
It's entirely different than Kenton County.
Yeah, and
or
they're all,
Bullitt County, for that matter.
so you've got a completely different system, and we're talking about a little paper. We're basically talking today about two different paperwork functions here that are pretty minimal and will inconvenience us in Jefferson County, maybe not too many other counties. But at the same time, we have some quite extraordinary variations in how voting is done and will be done in the future across Kentucky.
Senator Adams.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I'm not quite sure you meant what you said, which is everybody wants to do this except Jefferson County. I didn't hear that in the testimony. I heard that Jefferson County wants to do it, but they don't think they can do it right now under an emergency. So I want to make that clear. Jefferson County is saying they are going to do this, but they know through practicing, but they're practitioners, that they can't do it right now. So I'm not sure that you meant what you said, but it's just Jefferson County doesn't want to do this.
I think I've heard from Jefferson County in past discussions that they can do it. It's that they don't want to do it.
Right now.
Right now, yeah.
Because they're worried in a presidential race and the amount of people that are going to come out, and they want to do their job well, that they want to do it, but just not in this election.
And I would go back to the point that I don't know what will change to the next election. The processes are there. They work in all 119 other counties. That's all I can answer that.
Any other questions from members? Representative Grossberg.
Just another brief comment from my friend suggested a compromise that on election night, the unofficial results include the total number of write-ins without identifying who the write-ins are, would therefore satisfy. Would you guys be amenable to that kind of compromise? That would satisfy everyone getting immediate results. We know exactly what we're waiting on. We're not waiting on all the precincts to be released. There's X number of write-ins. Humans will review what those write-ins are between the unofficial period and the final certification. Jefferson County is as fast as the others. It's not holding back on the write-in category, et cetera, et cetera. Would that be acceptable?
I think that can be done technically quite easily. That's not a problem.
I'm not asking technically. I'm sorry.
And
Would you be okay with that?
We'd be fine with it.
Okay.
We'd be fine with it, yeah.
Well, and I would just say it goes back to your, well, not hypothetical. It happened with Murkowski in Alaska, and you kind of hinted at these are unofficial results. So whether murky counts or not, that's going to be litigated in the courts afterwards. So capturing all of them, there's only going to be one, maybe two people anyway. So I don't.
So again, but we have over 80 small cities, and the cities are on the ballot. So we will have a lot of write-ins for those city candidates. But unfortunately, the reg captures all write-ins. It just doesn't say write-ins for state office or write-ins for federal office. It says all write-ins. So you're holding up all election results.
So I'm going to pop in here. Did you have another question, Representative? Are you good?
No, but I'm hoping I can get a clear answer from Board of Elections. Would you be okay with that as a compromise, that it just says this many write-ins on that election line and does not identify the who?
I think so. I don't think that the technology can do it, is what I'm saying, that the various spellings, whether they end up counting or not, it will capture all of them, and it's kind of doing what you're saying. So I'm still not giving you a yes or no answer. Yes.
That's an answer.
There you go. There you go.
So, any more questions? Okay. So this is my opinion as chair. These two emergency regs can be deferred for 30 days. That's an easy solution to this problem, is we can take a 30-day pause and work out any possible solutions in the next 30 days on these two emergency regs. Would the agency be willing to consider a deferral on the two emergency regs we've discussed?
Absolutely.
Great. Is there a motion from anyone on the committee for this deferral? We have a motion. We have a second from Senator Yates. Without objection, it is so ordered. These two regulations are deferred. The committee will stand at ease. Do I need to state the numbers? We're going to come back to those motions. We have some business to attend to first. There are staff amendments on all the regs. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? Motion. We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. All the regulations are before us as amended by the staff amendments. We do have a motion to clarify the motion to defer KAR 4031E and 5040E. Is that correct on the motion, Representative? And the second, without objection, it is so ordered. Any other questions?
Apologies, Mr. Chairman. If I could just add one more comment. Fairfax, Virginia currently does the compromise that I suggested, where it reports the total number of write-ins but does not identify who they are until they are reviewed by human. I just wanted that in the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee will stand at ease. We got one other item real quick. But my understanding is they're okay with the ordinaries going through. our crack staff has brought to my attention something we should probably we should handle this a little bit differently. The wish is that we keep the emergency and the ordinary regs together. Would the agency agree to a deferral of the ordinaries as well as the emergency?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you so much. So now I would accept a motion. We already have a motion and agreed to steps on the emergencies. We can do those separate, correct? So now we need a motion for deferral of the ordinary regs. So we have a motion to defer 4031 ordinary and 5040 ordinary. Do we have a second? We have a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all the testimony, getting in the weeds on this. It is really important. And it is, we don't do this very often in here, but really appreciate your all's patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do appreciate the committee's time because this is complicated, and we really appreciate your attention and taking this so thoughtfully. Thank you.
Thank you to the Board of Elections as well.
Same. Thank you for the time, the opportunity, and just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the LRC staff as well. Y'all been great.
Thank you. Up next, we have the Office of Attorney General.
Yes, Office of the Attorney General, 40 KAR 1010, and this does have a staff suggested amendment.
40 KR 10010 creates pursuant to House Bill 302 from the 2023 regular session the uniform procedure and timeline the Department of Criminal Investigations within the Office of Attorney General shall follow when it conducts independent election inquiries, definitions and outline data and forms that shall be requested to complete inquiries. The staff amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Amy Burke. I'm formerly the Assistant Deputy Attorney General over the Criminal Division of the Office of Attorney General.
I'm Ed Price, Division Director over Public Corruption Unit with the Department of Criminal Investigations.
I want to go ahead and apologize to everyone in the room. Apparently, we should have had those regs last on the agenda, but they were first. Before we start, the regulations before us now are in some way related to the regulations we just deferred.
Yes, Chairman West, 31 KAR 4031E and 5040E are referenced in our regulation. I think in listening substantively, they don't necessarily affect us, but out of caution, I would ask that our regulation be deferred in line with the SBE regulations so that there are no issues created between the two should there be any substantive changes that would affect ours substantively.
That's what we were thinking as well. If you could hold on just a second. Before we do that, there's a staff amendment we're going to adopt. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? Second. We have a motion and a second. Without objection, it's so ordered. So we have before us the ordinary reg with staff amendment, and we have an agreed to request from the agency for deferral. Is there a motion for deferral of KAR 10010? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. So those are deferred until next month.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please call the next regulation.
Kentucky Public Pension Authority, 105 KAR 11, 1120, 1190, and 1411. 190, and 411 have an agency amendment as well as a staff amendment. 120 has a staff amendment.
105-1001 revises definitions, has an agency amendment to amend Section 1 to clarify the definition for bona fide promotion or career advancement and make technical corrections. 105-1120 revises provisions for employer participation in the county employees' retirement system. 105-1190 amends provisions pertaining to retirement in relation to qualified domestic relations orders. The agency amendment amends Section 24 to revise incorporated material. 105-1411 amends requirements for health and hospital insurance benefits provided by an agency. The agency amendment amends the relates to paragraph to make corrections, amends Section 1 to add a definition for hospital and medical insurance plan, and amends Section 10 to clarify qualifying event options for health insurance contributions. The staff suggested amendments amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter.
State your name for the record, please.
Jessica Bobian, Policy Specialist with Kentucky Public Pensions Authority.
Carrie Bass, Staff Attorney Supervisor, Kentucky Public Pensions Authority.
We have any questions from, before we get there are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendments? We have a motion, we have a second. Without objection, so ordered. There are also agency amendments. Are there any questions on the agency amendments? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval of the agency amendments? We have a motion. Second. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. So we have before us all the regs as amended by staff and agency amendments. Now, do we have any questions from members? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Board of Licensure for Occupational Therapy, 201 KAR 28240E. This does have a staff amendment.
201 KR 28240E establishes and incorporates by reference rules adopted by the Occupational Therapy Compact Commission as required by statute. The staff amendment amends Section 2 to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Please state your name for the record.
Clay Patrick, General Counsel for the Department of Professional Licensing.
Thank you. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendment? Motion and a second. Without objection, is so ordered. Any questions from members on the Board of Licensure for Occupational Therapy? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Office of Homeland Security, 911 Services Board, 202 KAR 6090. And this does have a staff amendment.
202-6090 amends the requirements for allowable expenditures by public safety answering points using the Commercial Mobile Radio Service Emergency Telecommunications Fund to add definitions, revise allocation provisions, and expand allowable expenditures. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Mike Sinceri, Deputy Executive Director, Office of Homeland Security, and Administrator of the 911 Services Board.
Christy Ross, Chief Operations Officer, Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, and Kentucky 911 Services Board.
Thank you so much. We do have a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? We have a motion and a second. Without objection, is so ordered. Do we have any questions from members on this set of regulations? I do have a question from one of my constituents. Okay, this may not be at all related. Since you're here, this may not be at all related to this, but he's a ham operator, and in some form or fashion, they're used in the emergency network and allowed to help with that. And this may be a question offline, I'm not sure, but can you comment on that? Are they still allowed to do that?
So this regulation only has to do with allowable uses for wireless 911 surcharges. So the money that's collected by the state board from end users' cell phones. And it's restrictions on the 911 call center's use of those funds. So it would have no impact at all for the ham radio operators.
I don't think you understood my question. It's totally unrelated to the regulation before us. So are those small operators, they have a role to play somehow or another in that emergency network if something bad happens? It has to do with weather-related things as well, like they're on the front lines. And
sure, yeah, absolutely.
You're answering my question by your eyes. This is an offline discussion, so
glad to engage in that with you, sir.
No worries. We'll do that offline. Any questions from members on this regulation? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, Department of Fish and Wildlife. 301 KAR 11, 301 151-152, and 301-522. 301-152 and 522 have staff amendments. 522 has an agency amendment as well.
301-1001 amends definitions to add definitions for the terms gillnet and changes the phrase commercial fisherman to commercial fisher. 301-152 amends invasive carp provisions to add the eligibility and participation requirements for the new voluntary experimental commercial fishing methods program. Remove the definition section and change the term Asian carp to invasive carp. The staff suggested amendment amends Section 2 to include the types of communication required from Tier 2 applicants and amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. 301-5022 amends license, tag, and permit fees to create a resident and non-resident experimental commercial fishing methods program permit that is separated into Tier 1 and Tier 2 categories, to increase various non-resident permit fees and establish fees for the experimental commercial fishing methods program permits. The agency amendment adds a new Section 8 that includes listing quota hunt fees that are established in other regulations.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Dave Dreves, Fisheries Division Director, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife.
Stephen Fields, Counsel for the Department.
Thank you so much. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? We have a motion and a second without objection. So ordered. There's also an agency amendment. Any questions on the agency amendment? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval of the agency amendment? We have a motion. We have a second without objection. Is so ordered. Any questions from members on this set of regulations? Co-Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, several months ago, I believe it was there was a question about alternate fishing methods that I asked, and it dealt with noodling, I believe, came up. Can you just go over some different experimental commercial fishing methods?
Yes, sir. There's a set of commercial gear and methods that are allowable by regulation, and so this would allow us to set up things like seining, for example. A seine is legal, but under specific conditions, the way the seine is set up, the length, how you retrieve it, areas where you could fish it. So this would allow us to allow commercial fishers that want to use methods in a different manner than prescribed by regulation. With our observance, we'd have a staff person with these experimenters so we could make sure there weren't detrimental impacts to fishing or navigation or to recreation. And so it's basically trying it out.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Seeing none, please call on the next regulation. Thank you.
Thank
you. Justice and Public Safety Cabinet, Department of Corrections, 501 KAR 6330E and 501 6430E, 501 KAR 13010. First two emergencies do not have any amendments, but 1310 does have a staff amendment.
501-6330E establishes the department's policies and procedures concerning personnel. 501-6430E establishes policies and procedures concerning visits, correspondence, access to telephones, packages, video visitation, and tablets. 501-13010 amends to require that telehealth services be provided, that adequate nutrition be provided for pregnant prisoners, and adds personnel requirements for employees who are under 18 and for employees who are under 21. The staff suggested amendment for 13010 amends Section 8 to specify that each female prisoner shall be issued an appropriate number of undergarments as required by statute.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Amy Barker, Assistant General Counsel here for the Department of Corrections.
Amelia Howell, Justice Program Administrator for Department of Corrections.
Jason Joseph, Administrative Branch Manager, Department of Corrections.
There's a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? We have a motion and a second. Without objection, so ordered. Any questions from members on this set of regulations from the Department of Corrections? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Education and Labor Cabinet, Board of Education, 704 KAR 3550, 7140, 780 231, 780 330, 335, 331, 3100, 3120, 3130, and 780 610, 620, 3550, 7140 both have staff amendments. 330, 35, 100, and 130 have staff amendments.
704-3550 establishes the minimum qualifications for teachers, aides, and paraprofessionals in the common schools. 704-7140 is being amended to include honorably discharged veterans of the Vietnam War as eligible to receive an authentic high school diploma. 780-2031 repeals 780-2010 because existing statutes make it unnecessary. 780-3030 through 3130 are being amended to parallel the statutes and make clarifications regarding specific policies and procedures to govern the state-operated area technology centers, clarify the specific governing bodies over policies and procedures relating to employee evaluations, certified and equivalent employee actions, the appeal systems, and makes changes to the facilitation of the grievance process. 780-6010 and 6020 are being amended to reflect the structure of the Office of Career and Technical Education as it relates to classification and compensation. The staff suggested amendments to these regulations make changes to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A and make technical changes.
Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. Todd Allen, Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel for the Department of Education and State Board.
Hi, I'm Sarah Peace. I'm Policy Advisor at Kentucky Department of Education.
Thank you so much. There's a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? We have a motion and a second. Without objection, so ordered. Any members have questions for the Department of Education? I'm sorry, Board of Education. Education and Labor Cabinet specifically. Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Education and Labor Cabinet, 803 KAR 2589E.
Whenever you're settled, if you would identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Wilhoit. I am Commissioner for the Kentucky Department of Workers' Claims.
Good afternoon. I'm Dale Hamlin. I'm the Assistant General Counsel for the Department of Workers' Claims.
Thank you so much. There are no amendments. Do we have any questions from members? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you. Sorry for the wait.
Public Protection Cabinet, Department of Financial Institutions, 8 KAR 10260. This has both agency and staff amendments.
808 KR 10260 amends to exempt previously registered agents and investment advisor representatives that have been unregistered for more than 2 years from retaking applicable exams if certain requirements are met, including requiring an agent to participate in the FINRA Maintaining Qualifications Program and the Examination Validity Extension Program, and an investment advisor representative to participate in the SAA Exam Validity Extension Program. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A. The agency amendment amends Section 2 to add to the list of professional designations a certified investment management analyst awarded by the Investment and Wealth Institute and an individual registered as an investment advisor representative relying on the professional designation of chartered investment counselor prior to January 1, 2025 if certain conditions are met. Amends Section 5 to require an agent to pass the securities industry essentials and for the appropriate exam depending on the proposed business updates the examination series list. And amends Section 5 to require that if registering in Kentucky as a broker-dealer, the applicant shall employ an individual who has passed the appropriate exams listed in Section 5 and is deemed a principal of the broker-dealer.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Financial institutions.
Marnie Gibson, Commissioner of the Department of Financial Institutions.
Chad Harlan, Assistant Director of the Division of Securities.
Thank you so much. There is a staff amendment. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendment? We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. We also have an agency amendment. Any questions from members on the agency amendment? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval of the agency amendment? Is there a motion for approval of the agency amendment? Second. We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you so much. So we have before us the Department of Financial Institutions reg with staff amendment and agency amendment. Any questions from members? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Department for Aging and Independent Living, 910 KAR 1270 with staff amendment.
910 KR 1270 amends to update various terminology, cleanup provisions, and include designated representative to provide guidance for participants. Update startup grants, including to increase the amount from $2,000 to $2,500. Update applicant and provider responsibilities, including to raise the activity fees limit from $750 to $1,000 per year, and update retention requirements, department responsibilities, and monitoring requirements, and update material incorporated by reference. The amended after comments version modifies services included as heart-supported living services, including respite care provisions and age of person served, and restores language that clarifies heart-supported living funds shall not be used to transport individuals to a segregated program or activity in which a majority of participants have a disability. The staff suggested amendment amends various sections to comply with CARES Chapter 13A and amends Section 7 to change references from Caregiver Misconduct Registry to Vulnerable Adult Maltreatment Registry for consistency with 201 CARE 5120.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Scott Collins, the branch manager for the Heart Supported Living.
Gina Oney, Assistant Director.
Thank you so much. We have a staff amendment. The staff has been very, very busy this month. Is there a motion for approval of staff amendment? We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. Any questions for the Department of Aging and Independent Living? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staying with CHFS, we have the Office of the Secretary Medicinal Cannabis Program, 915 KAR 11, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 100, 110. We also have the, let's see, yes, and all of those have staff amendments.
915-1001 through 1110 establishes definitions, requirements, procedures, and restrictions for cultivators, processors, producers, safety compliance facilities, dispensaries, secure transportation, advertising, marketing, signage, packaging, and labeling, and quality control for the medicinal cannabis program. The staff suggests the amendments to these regulations make changes to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A and make technical changes.
State your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Chairman Lewis, members of the committee. My name is Sam Flynn. I'm Executive Director of the Office of Medical Cannabis in the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Good afternoon. Warren McFarland, Deputy Executive Director.
And I'm Shelby Lewis, Executive Policy Advisor, Office of Medical Cannabis.
Thank you so much. There are staff amendments. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? We have a motion. We have a second from Senator Yates. Without objection, it is so ordered. Do we have any questions from members? This is the medical marijuana regulation rollout, implementing SB 47 and HB 829. Any questions from members? Senator Yates.
Mr. Chair, if I may just take a point of personal privilege to say thank you. I know this has been a long process that we worked really hard to try to look at best practices throughout the nation. I think that we are a decade behind, but I think some of the benefits of being so far behind is that we get to learn, and so I do expect there just to be some bumps still ahead of us, because that's just to be expected. But I do want to say thank you, because I know there's been lots and lots of work put into it.
I agree wholeheartedly, Senator Yates. Thank you. Is there any? Oh, Representative Grossberg.
Thank you for the promotion, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, right.
I echo those sentiments, but I want to ask, what more can we do to be supportive of the rollout? Because we want to get it right. Otherwise, eyes will be upon us across the nation. But I want us to be highly successful in this, as we were with the historic horse racing rollout and then the gaming machines. What can we do what more can we do to help you make this a success?
Thank you for the question, Representative, and thank you to the members of the committee, especially Chairman West for his work, his diligent work on Senate Bill 47 from 2023 and also House Bill 829 from 2024, which made some significant improvements to the law. I think we will continue to see places that need some nips and some tucks as we move along in this process over the next several years. With respect to directly to your question, please direct folks to our website. We have put a significant amount of materials on our website. For businesses, we have a business licensing application guide. It's about 80 pages. It provides potential applicants everything that they need to know about applying. We have YouTube videos that walk folks through that process as well. We have a contact us page where folks can submit questions to us, and we respond to all of them. I think we're close to 850 that we've received thus far. For patients, we have a guide that we've put out there for them. Of course, they can't apply until January 1st of 2025, but please send folks to our website. We're also rolling out some additional information around local governments, so folks are opting in, opting out, putting it on the ballot, and we are providing that information as soon as we get it on our website, so folks understand where this is going to be and what communities it's going to be in. So if you have questions, please refer them to us. Please give me a call. If you have constituents, please send them to us as well. We're happy to answer any questions that they have.
Thank you so much. I would just like to echo Senator Yates' comment. Thank you for the implementation. This is just a little bit complicated at times as we move forward and go into uncharted territory. I got two questions. My first question, we have the conditions specifically set out in statute. Nothing in this set of regulations or any previous set of regulations changes that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We're adhering to KRS strictly.
That's correct.
My understanding, in order to get the bills passed, we had an agreement between different houses and different individuals that would remain intact. So I just want to make sure that.
Yes, sir.
Finally, if you could just comment briefly on the local elections and kind of what, to me, it's kind of been a hodgepodge. Some are opting in, some are specifically opting out. So if you just make a brief comment on that, and then I'll be done. That's all it for me.
I'm actually so glad you asked this question because I prepared for this one. So with respect to the cities and counties, everyone starts from an opted-in position. So if you look in the KRS, this is at KRS 218B 130. So this provides the rules that local governments have to follow with respect to opting in or opting out. If you want to opt out, there's two ways to do it. First is by opting out via ordinance. You can also opt out by putting it on the ballot and letting voters decide. If you are a county and you opt out the entire county, including all of the jurisdictions therein. Cities within the county can then opt back in, as has been done on several occasions. So I have some of, and I know that this is not an exhaustive list because we haven't heard back from everybody, but thus far we have 9 counties that have opted out, 17 counties that have opted in, and 18 that have put it on the ballot. We have heard back from 55 cities, 10 have opted out, 22 have opted in, and 11 have put it on the ballot. And we have a very neat map that's interactive on our website where you can go and you can see the counties that have opted out. If everything in that jurisdiction is out, it is red. If everything is in, it's blue. And if it's a hybrid county, it's purple. So operators, citizens, local government officials know who's in, who's out. We're also putting copies of the ordinances on the website so folks can go there. We have sample ordinances as well for opting in or out or putting it on the ballot. So we've tried to put as much information out there as we possibly can. I think we've spoken to 8 of the 15 ad districts, and we'll go through all of those by the end of the summer. We've held webinars with the Kentucky League of Cities, with KCO, with the magistrates, and with the County Judge Executive Association, as well as the Kentucky Prevention Network. And we'll be doing more outreach as the summer goes on around opt-ins and opt-outs.
So with the blue coloring, that wasn't related to the Democratic Party or anything?
No, it's more Go Cats.
I'm just joking. And then we get into UK U of L situation there. Just joking. Any questions from members? Senator Yates.
Yeah, the only thing that I've been hit with a couple times on questions that since we're kind of laying out now, and the some that are being put on the ballot that won't be till November. In the event that some of the businesses go ahead in reliance on our rollout, and then the ballot, say it's voted down, how does that work as far as grandfathering or what?
That's a great question. So we actually put out on I think it was June 27th or 28th, local government guidance. Again, this is all available on our webpage. And so what that provides is how we are going to handle local government opt-ins, opt-outs from a standpoint of the draw perspective. So we will draw, let's say we're talking about dispensaries and we're talking about an Eastern Kentucky region. We are going to pull them, and the first 4 that come up, regardless of whether they're all in the same county or not, the first one that's in that county, if the county has opted in or the jurisdiction that they're in has opted in, then they can operate in that jurisdiction. The other 3 will be allowed to move to other jurisdictions which have allowed medical cannabis business operations. Again, we want to make sure that local governments can make the best decision for their constituents, but we also want to make sure that the businesses have flexibility, and that's what we've built into our regulations.
Representative Frazier Gordon.
Thank you for all the information. Would you be able to give the web address for the public? Referenced it several times so that way people can look that information up.
Absolutely. It's kymedcan.ky.gov.
Thank you.
Any more questions from members on medical cannabis? Seeing none, thank you so much for your hard work on this. And that concludes...
Nope, we have a few more. This is going to be Chapter 2.
Oh.
So 915 KAR Chapter 2, 1, 10, 20, 30, and 40. 1 and 20 have no amendments. The balance have staff amendments.
915-2001 through 2040 establishes definitions, procedures for issuance, renewal, suspension, and revocation of registry identification cards, supply limits for medicinal cannabis, an equivalency formula, written certification forms, and procedures to publish and update an annual list of varieties of cannabis. The staff suggested amendments to these regulations make changes to comply with the drafting requirements of KRS Chapter 13A, add material incorporated by reference, and make technical changes.
We will not make you state your name for the record again. There are, just in case we didn't cover it with the first motion, there are staff amendments on some of these regs. Is there a motion for approval of the staff amendments? Motion. We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, so ordered. The regs are before us as amended by staff amendments. Any questions from members on this secondary set of regs? Seeing none, that is it for today. Thank you so much for your hard work on this issue. Next up, we have the proposed date for our next meeting, and that would be August 13th, 2024 at 1 p.m. We have any conflicts or problems for members at this time? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.